Jesse, today I wanted to talk about narcissism. And as I mentioned before, you're like one of the most emotionally intelligent, amazing people I've ever met. And so on YouTube, it's a hot thing now. A lot of therapists and other people are talking about narcissists. So have you dated a narcissist? Oh, okay, now you have to heal, or have you had a narcissist encounter in your life? Like, and this one fellow was saying, whatever bad they've done to you, just feel good now because you know that 3 times, 5 times, 10 times more of that bad stuff that they did to you is going to go right back to them, And I'm listening to this stuff. I'm like, I don't know if this feels right, to listen to. I don't know if this is making me feel better. And like, don't we all have some narcissist qualities? Like the narcissist being like, I'm going to take what I want. I don't care what happens to you. And your first girlfriend that you had your first daughter with, I think that anyone who ever would hear anything about it would think, oh my God, Jesse, you dated a narcissist. Oh my God, you know. And so, what is the meaning for so people that think they've dated a narcissist? Like, what do- what do we need to know or to realize, or what's there for us?
What I find for myself with narcissistic behaviors or whatever you want to call them,
Hmm.
it's more of a self reflection because like when you're dealing with a narcissistic personality or a person, um,
So they're in your life.
yeah, you're connected to them for a reason.
Uh,
So in part, you're both narcissistic and on their terms, but now you're only focusing on their negative instead of yours.
yeah, so it's like, oh, I did all this nice stuff, and all they did was take, take, take. They used me.
Yeah,
But you're saying that those two people would come together because that person is maybe representing something about me
yeah,
that
yeah,
I didn't want to see.
yeah.
So now it's like, well, I know they're an asshole because like they used me and they took stuff and they only cared about themselves. But are these kind of shadow aspects of me that kind of manifested in the relationship, and I can project them onto the
It's
other
like a
person?
narcissistic behavior, like I'm great, I'm fine, I'm not doing anything wrong. You are. So like it's like when
So
you're
that in
calling someone
itself,
out,
you're
like
saying that in itself is a type of narcissism. Like,
yeah,
I was so nice and so giving and they just used me, so now I'm getting a leg up on them.
yeah,
So
that's
I'm stepping on their head to feel better.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
like putting them down instead of looking at what we did to help create this situation. Say for instance, with my past relationship where it was highly abusive.
Like,
Um,
you were abused left and right,
yeah,
like
like
physically,
physically, emotionally,
emotionally.
like all
I mean,
like
I remember the purse incident that you
yeah,
told me about.
yeah, even sexually, I would say abuse.
by
So
by your
yeah,
ex-girlfriend.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So it's to say like that creates a lot of anger, jealousy, resentment. You could also focus on all the negative things that they've done to you or how they've made you feel. But to do that, that doesn't change where you're going to go. You need to focus on what brought you there. You need to
Right,
focus on
right,
what made you attached to something like that and then
right.
work from there and also love that other person. Because if you don't love them, then you're also narcissistic yourself because everyone needs love and deserves love no matter how we judge them or see them. And that in itself creates mental health, and then narcissistic behavior itself is clouding itself by narcissistic behavior. So it's you really need, I think, need to take a deep look into your heart and self instead of the conditioned mind to where society looks at is right, and start talking from here.
Because like you said, we brought this into our life, we manifested this into our life. So if we had this imbalanced relationship, what is it inside us that manifested this and brought this? Now, what was that guy you said you spoke to him briefly, and he was somewhat of a psyche or emotional mentor for you? I'm trying to remember his name.
Jack Cornfield.
Jack Cornfield. So you had lent me some of his material to listen to, and one amazing story in there was that this young kid in a gang was told, you got to kill somebody. This one, it's your rite of passage into this gang. You got to go kill someone. You heard the story too. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he went and killed this kid, killed another kid, random kid, no reason to kill him, just as a rite of passage into this gang. He ends up in court, and the mother of the murdered child goes up to this murderer and says, I'm going to kill you. And she visits him in jail. And when he gets out of jail, she helps him find a job. She puts him up in her house. This is the kid who killed her kid. And one day they talked about that episode, and he was like, were you just like out of your head
Yeah,
when
he
you said you're
said,
going to kill me?
yeah, he
Like,
said, do you remember that day in court what I said to you, and he
Uh,
said
oh, so
that
the
you'll
mom
kill me.
said, yeah, the
Yeah,
mom said, do you remember? And he said, yeah, I remember. You said you'd kill me.
yeah, yeah. And he said, I'll never forget that day. And then she said, well, I did kill you because that boy that killed my son is not alive anymore, and so changed the world.
I'm
You know?
getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, would this mother have been justified in vigilante justice and hating him like crazy? Who could blame her for that? But she found that power of love, such an incredible power. Like, I don't know, I don't know how many people could find that much power of love to do what she did, and she turned that guy around. She
Yeah.
turned him around, and he came from a broken home,
And
didn't
the
he?
boy who killed her son became her son.
So an adopted,
Yeah, no,
in
they
a
actually,
sense,
like, like it doesn't even have to be adopted or not.
like,
Like that energetic
right?
feeling and care for that person, he became her son, and
Yeah,
and changed the cycle of abuse.
that's a powerful story. So if you had something bad happen to you and you want to label that person as a narcissist and you want to wish bad on them, you're bringing yourself down, and you're missing an opportunity. Now, you're aiming very high, and that's good to aim high. Love that person, want well to them. But if you aren't at that point, like I hate that mofo so much, I can't do that. At least look at yourself like, what lessons can I get about myself? And the lesson is not, I'm never going to trust anyone again. That's not the lesson. The lesson is, what was it inside me which manifested this? Is there a shadow aspect of myself that I don't want to see, and I'm
Cause
labeling them?
yeah, cause it's okay to hate. You know, it's a process. It takes time to change those feelings. So if you think you're gonna go from hate to positive just like that, it's a process. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of forgiveness. There's a lot of love, a lot of support. There's a lot of nutrition, workout. Like there's a whole change of life that needs to happen for yourself, for that shift as well, because each thing triggers another thing, which leads to that mental health stability. So it's never quick. It's never easy, but it's worth it. And dealing with those demons, that hate, the resentment, whatever you want to call it, it will change your life. It will change your family's life, your children, your grandchildren. It will change your community.
Because you become that stone that drops in the water and makes those waves, like. And one thing you're really big on is to not like just put a veneer over something, like, okay, I'm not supposed to hate, my ex or whatever person who wronged me, so I'm going to love them. So then the person just pretends to love them, and then they become like this dog shit with icing on top, like. So it has to be a real thing. So you're saying, if you hate them, don't hate yourself for hating them,
Yeah.
but just
Don't feel
recognize,
shame
okay,
for
I've
it.
got I've got a goal,
Yeah,
and
you have something to work on.
I'm gonna journal about it. I'm gonna
Yes.
explore myself, look at myself, forgive myself for things that I may have done in my life that resemble what this person did to me. So after my experience with a very unbalanced and painful relationship, I remembered stuff from, like, I'm 50s, right? I remembered stuff from 30 years ago. I'm like, you know what? Like, the way I treated that girl I was dating wasn't very good. Like, I wasn't very cognizant of her emotions in this situation and that situation. So, these are things that came up for me because I was trying to, and it's an ongoing thing. You're never finished, but it's an ongoing thing where I examine myself. What have I done to make someone feel like the way I felt? The way I felt hurt. What did I do to make somebody else feel like that? And also, what you mentioned, self-love before, which is a humongous thing, right? So if we don't love ourselves, then we're going to call people into our life that aren't very loving towards us because we don't even love ourselves. We might have this veneer like, oh yeah, I'm great, I do affirmations, but we have to do
Yeah.
that deep work, which often.
Because it's a good place to feel. Like when you feel connected to God, connected to that euphoria, that's that feeling that everyone's seeking for, and that becomes like another egotistical attainment. You know, oh, I'm this or I'm that, or I'm great, I'm that, and it's like we are all everything. So like if you're great, you're just as great as you are shitty. So no matter how good you are, that's how shitty you can be as a human being,
Mhm.
because it's a full circle, the yin yang. You know, like everything comes back around. So however good you can be is how evil you can be.
And it's about looking at those parts of ourselves and healing them, forgiving them, accepting them, that we are able to be more conscious in our relationships, and the manifestations of our life will be in tune and in a way that doesn't leave us perplexed or bewildered or hurt or shocked or whatever.
And we're not just chasing after what we want. you're doing what is right. And that is a it's a hard thing in society nowadays because there's no money in doing what's right. You know, there's
Well, I want a boyfriend or a girlfriend that's going to do this and do
yeah,
that and do this, and they won't do that, and that's
and
what I
have
want.
this and have
But
that
like,
from me.
but what am I bringing to the table? Who am I? Do I know myself, right? And a lot of the stuff that I've been looking at, it goes back to my childhood in terms of my esteem issues, my self-lovability issues, and that can be done with a therapist, with journaling, with self-reflection, but really examine, where, take a look at yourself, and don't just like live in the moment and don't worry about the past, because the past, that any past that's unhealed is still affecting the present moment. So, it's a whole, like you said, yin yang. We have to look
Yeah.
at as much of ourselves as we can and be more and more conscious of who we are. And then we're more present for any relationship and friendship that we
And
have.
then we're also less reactive to these narcissistic behaviors that happen around us daily. You know, like instead of pointing fingers and blame, why don't we look at the good traits to help support them to become who they should be rather than these conditions mined from fear and abuse? I think is very necessary in order to see actual change rather than just all these superficial, nice words that we like to doctor over and rhetoric talk, you know, rather than real talk. You know, like that's the biggest hindrance for mental health, for any movement, for any relationship, for anything together to work through anything. That's what you need. So
Is, yeah, real talk, and not just, I'm trying to look like this icing. Like, what is
yeah,
actually
I'm
there?
getting paid, so I could only say these things. These are the only things I could talk to you about.
Oh, you
You
mean
know, I
like
can't
some
mention, yeah, you
therapists?
know, I can't mention these words. I can't say these things. And it creates a dynamic that interferes with who the person actually is and growth by all these limitations that the Western world puts on us.
And we do that internally as well, not just the
Exactly.
therapist, but inside ourselves. Like, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to admit that. And I'm just going to focus on how bad that other person was, right? Which doesn't bring us anywhere forward. Jesse, I knew that there was going to be a lot about narcissism that I wasn't catching from the other YouTube videos I've watched. So
So,
thank you for that.
no, thank you.